So, can you lower your biological age? Imagine two people who are both 65 years old. One is traveling, exercising, learning new skills, playing pickleball, and enjoying life with energy and independence. The other struggles with fatigue, memory problems, chronic pain, and multiple medications. Same age, very different outcomes. Why? Today, we're going to explore what science really tells us about longevity, biological age, inflammation, cellular energy, and how we can improve our chances of living not just longer, but better. I'm Dr. Gary Kaplan, founder and medical director of the Kaplan Center for Integrative Medicine. When most people think about longevity, they think about living longer. But there is a more important word than lifespan. It's healthspan. Lifespan is how long you live. Healthspan is how long you live well, energetic, sharp, strong, and independent. You can have a long lifespan and a short health span. Years added at the end, spent sick, tired, and dependent. The real goal of longevity medicine is to close that gap, to make your health span match your lifespan, and still traveling, creating, still fully and vibrantly yourself. The testing we can do now, such as NeuroAge, TruAge, senescent cell and NeuroAge, and whole body MRIs. The proven basics everyone should be doing: blood pressure, blood sugar control, cholesterol, and heart screening. Inflammation and aging, mitochondrial health and cellular energy, protecting the brain, and the case for acting early, sleep, exercise, nutrition, connection, community, and purpose. Aging is not one thing. One of the biggest misconceptions about aging is that it's a single process. It's not. Aging is actually the result of many interconnected biologic systems gradually becoming less efficient over time. Think of your body like a city. You've got power plants producing energy, roadways delivering nutrients and oxygen, communication networks coordinating activity, repair crews fixing the damage, waste management systems clearing debris. When we're young, these systems function remarkably well, but over time, wear and tear begin to accumulate. The system doesn't stop working overnight. They simply become less efficient. The result is what we recognize as aging: lower energy, slower recovery, increased inflammation, reduced muscle mass, cognitive changes, and greater vulnerability to disease. The exciting part is that many of these systems are modifiable, and that's where longevity medicine begins. So here's something that surprises most people. You don't have one age. You have many ages. Your heart has an age. Your brain has an age. Your immune system has an age. Your kidneys, your liver, your blood vessels, each one ages on its own schedule, and they don't move in lockstep. Recent research has shown that a person can have a young heart but an older brain, or strong kidneys but an aging immune system. In fact, scientists can now look at markers in the blood and estimate how fast an individual's organ systems are aging. And this matters enormously because if we can identify which systems are aging fastest before it becomes a disease, we can focus our efforts where they count. This is the shift happening in medicine right now. We're moving from a single number on a birthday card to a detailed map of how each part of you is doing. And that map is something we can actually test. One framework that has become increasingly important in longevity science is called Hallmarks of Aging. Think of these as the major biologic processes that contribute to aging over time. Scientists have identified several key hallmarks, including accumulated cellular damage, chronic inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, changes in gene regulation, loss of healthy stem cell function, impaired cellular communications, and the accumulation of dysfunctional cells known as senescent cells. These processes don't happen independently. They interact with one another. A decline in one system often accelerates decline in another. What's exciting is that researchers are increasingly studying ways to influence these hallmarks directly. Rather than waiting for disease to develop, we're beginning to ask, can we improve the biology of aging itself? Another concept receiving significant attention is biologic age. Your chronologic age is how many years you've been alive. Your biologic age is an estimate of how well your body is functioning relative to your peers. Two people may both appear to be 60 years old chronically, but biologically, one may resemble a healthy 45-year-old, while another may resemble someone much older. Researchers evaluate biologic aging using many factors, including cardiovascular health, metabolic function, inflammatory markers, body composition, body fitness, cognitive performance, and advanced epigenetic testing. The goal isn't simply to lower a number. The goal is to improve the underlying biology that number represents. But ultimately, how you function matters more than how old you are. So, how do we actually measure biologic age? Not guess at it, measure it. We now have a growing toolbox: epigenetic age testing, TruAge. Your DNA doesn't change much over your life, but the chemical tags sitting on top of your DNA do. These tags change in predictable patterns as we age. By reading them, tests like TruAge can estimate your biologic age and even the pace of your aging. I just did this test on one of my patients who is currently in her early 50s. She tested 10 years younger biologically than her chronologic age. She's aging at about 0.7 years for every chronologic year that she lives. It's not just how old you are, but how fast you're aging right now. The brain deserves its own attention. NeuroAge looks specifically at how the brain is aging. Immune testing, or T-cell aging, your immune system ages too. We call this immunosenescence. As we get older, the immune system shifts. We lose naive T-cells. These are the fresh recruits ready to fight new threats, and we accumulate worn-out, exhausted cells. A younger immune profile means better defense against infection, better defense against cancer, better surveillance for cancer, and less chronic inflammation. We can now measure this balance and track whether it's improving. Senescent cell burden. Remember those retired cells that refuse to leave? Researchers are developing ways to estimate how many of these senescent cells a person is carrying. It's still an emerging science, but it points toward a future where we can measure cellular clutter, target it, and get rid of it. Whole body MRIs. This is imaging your entire body. We don't use any radiation. It can screen, maybe not so quietly, but it can screen all at once your entire body, looking for early cancers, aneurysms, and other silent conditions long before symptoms appear. It's not perfect. Sometimes it finds harmless spots that lead to more testing, so it has to be used thoughtfully. But the principle is powerful. Find the problem while it's still small. Put these tools together and something remarkable happens. We stop guessing. We start measuring. All of this advanced science is incredibly exciting. Epigenetic clocks, whole body MRIs, gene therapy on the horizon. But I have to tell you something as a physician. Before any of that, there are basic, proven, life-saving fundamentals that far too many people are simply not doing. And no longevity gadget will ever make up for skipping them. So let's get to the basics. First, and most important of all, if you smoke, stop. Full stop. Nothing in this entire list matters more. Next, know your numbers. A good, thorough physical should identify your most important risks long before they even become an emergency. Control your blood pressure. It's the silent driver of stroke, heart disease, kidney disease, and even dementia. And most people who have it don't feel a thing. Control your blood sugar. Rising blood sugar and insulin resistance quietly damage nearly every system we've talked about today. Control your cholesterol, specifically your LDL cholesterol, low-density lipoprotein, and your ApoB, the particles that actually drive plaque in your arteries. The new recommendations are we should be getting our LDLs down to about 70 in a healthy individual with no heart disease and 50 or lower in someone who already has coronary artery disease. And here's one people have never even heard of: lipoprotein A, little a. It's an inherited risk factor. It's essentially a genetic marker for heart disease, stroke, and you should have it measured at least once in your life. You can't manage a risk factor if you don't know you have it. And when it's appropriate, we can look directly at the heart itself. A simple coronary calcium CT scan can detect plaque building in the artery of the heart, years, sometimes decades, before a heart attack. And it's not being done on a regular basis by many physicians. I just had a gentleman who suffered a heart attack, not one of my patients, had regular checkups, history of hypertension, never had a CT scan of his heart, just had a heart attack, just required 2 stents in order to fix it. This could have been identified long before and addressed more aggressively without him having had the heart attack. But here's the reality. Heart disease is still the #1 killer, and it's one of the most preventable things we know of. That is why I get a little impatient with the hype. It's easy to get excited about the frontier, but the foundations is where the real proven gains are won. Get the basics right first, then build from there. One of the most important discoveries in longevity research is something called chronic low-grade inflammation. Researchers often refer to this as inflammaging. Inflammation in and of itself isn't bad. It's an essential part of healing. When you cut your finger or fight an infection, inflammation helps you recover. The problem occurs when the inflammatory response never fully turns off. Instead of being activated only when needed, the immune system remains slightly activated all the time. This chronic inflammation contributes to cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, insulin resistance, arthritis, frailty, and accelerated aging. In many ways, inflammation acts like a slow-burning fire inside the body. Over years and decades, that fire gradually damages tissue and impairs normal functioning. The goal isn't to eliminate inflammation. The goal is to restore balance. And that brings us to another major factor in aging: energy production. Inside nearly every cell in the body are tiny structures called mitochondria. The job of the mitochondria is simple but essential. It takes nutrients and oxygen and converts them into usable energy. Everything you do depends on this process: thinking, moving, healing, maintaining body temperature, supporting immune function, everything. As we age, mitochondrial function often declines. The result can be fatigue, reduced endurance, slower recovery, brain fog, and metabolic dysfunction. Many researchers now believe mitochondrial health may be one of the most important determinants of healthy aging, because when energy production declines, every other system becomes harder to maintain. This is one reason why longevity medicine places such a strong emphasis on supporting cellular energy production. And one molecule receiving tremendous amounts of attention in this area is NAD+. One of the most talked about topics in longevity medicine today is NAD+. NAD+ is shorthand for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. It's a molecule found in every cell in the body. It plays a critical role in energy production, cellular repair, and healthy aging. Think of NAD+ as a helper molecule that allows many of the body's repair processes and maintenance systems to function properly. The challenge is that NAD+ levels naturally decline as we age. Researchers believe this decline may contribute to some of the biologic changes associated with aging, including reduced cellular resilience, decreased energy production. Because of this, there's been a growing interest in therapies designed to support NAD+ pathways. These include NAD+ IV therapies, nicotinamide riboside, often called NR, and NMN, or nicotinamide mononucleotide. The science is promising, but it's important to remain realistic. At this point, we don't have evidence that NAD is a miracle anti-aging solution, but it represents one example of how researchers are beginning to look beyond symptoms and focus on the cellular processes that influence aging itself. And when we talk about aging at the cellular level, there's another important concept to understand. Throughout our lives, our body constantly replaces damaged or aging cells. but sometimes older cells can stop functioning properly and fail to clear out. These cells are called senescent cells or sometimes zombie cells. You can think of them as retired workers who never leave the workplace. Not only are they no longer contributing effectively, but they may also create problems. Senescent cells release inflammatory chemicals that can influence nearby tissues. Over time, the accumulation of these cells may contribute to inflammation, tissue dysfunction, and age-related decline. Researchers are studying therapies known as senolytics. Senolytics are designed to help the body identify and remove certain senescent cells. This remains an emerging area of research, but there are things we can do now to help clear those. But it reflects an important shift in how scientists think about aging, influencing the biologic processes that contribute to multiple diseases at once, rather than treating diseases one at a time. And alongside removing old cells, researchers are exploring the opposite question. Can we replenish the body's capacity to repair? This is where stem cell research comes in. Stem cells are the body's raw material, cells that can renew tissue and support repair. As we age, our own stem cells functioning declines. The hope is that stem cell therapies might one day help restore some of that lost repair capacity. I want to be honest with you here. This is one of the most promising and one of the most overhyped areas in all of medicine. For most conditions, stem cell therapy is still investigational. It's not approved anti-aging therapy, and there are clinics around the world making promises far ahead of the science. So my message is one of cautious optimism. The biology is genuinely exciting, but this is an area where you want evidence and oversight, not marketing. If there's one intervention that impacts nearly every pathway involved in healthy aging, it's sleep. Sleep is not simply a period of rest. It's a period of active biological repair. While you sleep, your body repairs tissues, balances hormones, supports immune functioning, consolidates memories, regulates metabolism, and helps clear metabolic waste from the brain. When sleep becomes chronically disrupted, inefficient, the effects extend throughout the entire body. Research has linked poor sleep with increased inflammation, insulin resistance, weight gain, cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and reduced lifespan. The reality is that many people spend a significant time searching for advanced longevity therapies while overlooking one of the most powerful tools available to them every night. Longevity isn't only about optimization, it's about recovery. And recovery is where the body performs some of its most important maintenance work. Another intervention that affects nearly every longevity pathway is movement. If a pharmacologic company could package everything exercise does into a pill, it would likely be one of the most valuable medications ever created. Exercise improves cardiovascular health, insulin sensitivity, brain functioning, mood, resilience, muscle mass, bone density, and mitochondrial functioning. And perhaps more importantly, it improves the body's ability to adapt to stress. One of the strongest predictors of healthy aging is maintaining muscle mass and strength as we get older. Muscle's not simply about appearance. It is a metabolic organ. It influences blood sugar regulation, hormone balance, mobility, independence, and resilience. The goal is not extreme fitness. The goal is maintaining function, because longevity is ultimately about preserving the ability to do the things that matter most to you. Now let's talk about another major influence on how we age: nutrition. What we eat influences every system we've discussed today. Our energy production, our inflammation levels, our cardiovascular health, our brain function, and our metabolic resilience. While there's ongoing debate about the ideal diet, most longevity experts agree on several foundational principles. Eat whole foods, eat your vegetables, prioritize quality protein, consume healthy fats, increase fiber intake, and minimize ultra-processed food whenever possible. We also need to be attentive to the fact that different people have different needs nutritionally, and so we need to be able to modify the diet according to what's best for you. The goal is not perfection. The goal is creating an environment where the body can efficiently repair, recover, and maintain itself. When metabolic health improves, inflammation often decreases. When inflammation decreases, energy production often improves. And when energy improves, resilience improves. These systems are deeply interconnected. We've talked about sleep, food, movement, and a little bit about some cutting-edge therapies. But one of the most powerful longevity factors of all isn't a test, a supplement, or a treatment. It's other people. Decades of research show that strong relationships are among the best predictors of a long, healthy life. In fact, chronic loneliness and social isolation carry a health risk comparable to smoking. Think about that. Isolation can be as dangerous as a pack-a-day habit. The longest-lived communities in the world share something in common, and it isn't a particular diet or a particular gene. It's deep, daily connection. Family, friendship, belonging, a sense of purpose. And biology backs this up. Connection lowers stress hormones. It reduces inflammation. It supports the brain. Social engagement is one of the protective factors against cognitive decline, and it gives us something to get up for in the morning. So as you think about your health, don't only think about what you eat and how you exercise. Think about who you spend your time with. Nurture your relationships. Stay engaged. Stay needed. Stay connected. Because a long life is not just a healthy body. It's a life shared with people who matter. Of everything we discussed, nothing matters more to most people than this: keeping their mind. So I want to share one of the most important ideas in brain medicine today. Alzheimer's disease, which is the most common type of dementia, does not begin when memory fails. Think about that. The biologic changes start happening 15 to 20 years before the first symptom. By the time someone notices memory problem, that process has been long underway. Because there's a long window, years, even decades, when the brain is changing, but the person still functions well. And that window is exactly where intervention may matter most. There's a continuum. First, normal aging. Then subtle changes a person notices tests can't yet catch. Then mild cognitive impairment, or MCI, and only later dementia. The earlier on that path we act, the more we may be able to bend the curve. We now have blood tests that can detect Alzheimer's-related changes early. We have imaging and cognitive testing that can flag risk before crisis. And this is the key. We have evidence that addressing these factors early on can make a difference. A landmark study called the Finger Trial showed that structural program, exercise, nutrition, cognitive engagement, managing blood pressure and blood sugar improve cognitive outcomes in at-risk older individuals. And the major reviews now estimate that nearly half of dementia risk is tied to factors we can actually influence. Things like hearing, blood pressure, activity, sleep, social connections, inflammation, all the things we've been talking about. Let me be clear about what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. We cannot yet guarantee the prevention of Alzheimer's. But the old idea that we are simply helpless, that we should wait until symptoms appear and then manage the decline, that idea is out the window. The goal is to find the earliest signs, to act while the brain still has its reserves, and to give every patient the best possible chance of keeping their mind sharp for as long as possible. This is the whole philosophy of longevity medicine applied to the organ that matters the most. As our understanding of aging continues to evolve, medicine itself is beginning to evolve. Historically, medicine is focused on diagnosing and treating disease after it appears. But longevity medicine asks a different question. How do we identify dysfunction before disease develops? How do we improve the biologic systems that support long-term health? This is where emerging approaches such as biologic age testing, advanced inflammatory markers, metabolic assessment, NAD+ support, senolytic therapies, and therapeutic plasma exchange are generating significant interest. Therapeutic plasma exchange, or TPE, is a procedure that removes and replaces a portion of circulating plasma. Let me tell you why that idea is more than an analogy. As we age, our blood plasma changes. It accumulates inflammatory signals, worn out proteins, and the chemical exhaust of senescent cells. In a sense, the fluid of our cells live in gets older too. So researchers asked a simple question. What if you simply remove some of that aged plasma and replaced it with clean replacement fluid? In animal studies, diluting old plasma this way improved tissue repair and cognitive measures, suggesting some of the signs of aging come from the environment around our cells, not just the cells themselves. In people, a large Alzheimer's trial called AMBER used plasma exchange with albumin replacement and reported a slowing of cognitive decline somewhere between 50 to 65% in patients with mild to moderate onset dementia. And early human studies are now reporting something even more provocative, that a course of plasma exchange may lower biologic age on the epigenetic clock and shift the immune system toward a younger profile. I want to be careful here. The studies are early and small. This is not a proven fountain of youth. Therapeutic plasma exchange is not universally used as a longevity treatment, and it's not appropriate for everyone. But in principle, and worth watching, improves the environment the cells live in, and you may improve how the whole system functions. Two other tools deserve mention because they target aging from different directions. The first is a new class of metabolic medications like tirzepatide. You may know these drugs by their role in diabetes and weight loss, but what's interesting to longevity medicine is why they work. They improve blood sugar, they reduce excess body fat, especially the dangerous fat around organs. They lower inflammation, and they ease the metabolic burden that drives so much of aging. For the right patient, that's a meaningful shift in the underlying biology. But there's a catch. You need to be careful because too much weight loss can also result in muscle loss. So the risk is, with the muscle loss, you're also going to find yourself more frail. So we want to make sure that we're modulating carefully how much weight you're losing and that we're preserving muscle mass as we use these medications. The second is low-dose naltrexone, or LDN. In low doses, this medication appears to calm a specific kind of inflammation, the inflammation of the nervous system driven by the brain's immune cells, the microglia. 12 years ago, I wrote a book called Total Recovery, entirely about microglial activation in causing chronic pain and chronic illness. For some patients with chronic pain, fatigue, and that brain on fire feeling, low-dose naltrexone can help quiet that fire. It's low cost, generally well tolerated. It's an off-label use, and it's not for everyone. But it reflects the same themes running through everything today. Target the biology, in this case, the neuroinflammation, not just the symptom. Now let me take you to the very edge of what's possible. This is the frontier, the far horizon of longevity science. And honestly, it's breathtaking. Everything we've talked about so far works on the body's hardware, its tissue, its chemistry, its fuel. But what if we could go deeper, all the way down to the source code itself, your DNA? This is the promise of gene therapy. Gene therapy means delivering new genetic instructions directly to your cells to repair, enhance, or restore function. And this isn't science fiction anymore, it's already here. Gene therapy is curing certain forms of inherited blindness, reversing diseases that were otherwise once a death sentence. And now, a bold group of scientists is asking a truly radical question. Could we use gene therapy to target aging itself? Take your telomeres, the protective caps on the ends of your chromosomes that shorten as you age. In animal studies, switching the telomerase gene back on has actually extended lifespan. Or muscles, where a gene called follistatin can be introduced to help build and preserve the muscles we lose with age. One of the most fascinating pioneers here is a company called BioViva, led by Liz Parrish. In an act of extraordinary and deeply controversial self-experimentation, Parrish made herself patient zero, receiving experimental gene therapies to test whether we could lengthen telomerase and build muscle in a living human being. She bills herself as the first GMO human being. Now, I have to be completely honest with you here. This work is years ahead of the regulations. It's not FDA approved. It hasn't been through large, rigorous clinical trials. We demand before calling anything safe or proven. It can't be administered in this country. The risk and the unknowns are real. This is absolutely not something I'm telling you to go out and do, but I share it because it represents something thrilling. The sheer boldness of human imagination aimed squarely at aging. The idea that aging might not be a fixed sentence handed down to us, but a process we could one day reprogram. Whether pioneers like BioViva turn out to be right or wrong, they're chasing one of the most exciting questions in all of science. What if aging is not our destiny, but software we can learn to rewrite? That future isn't here yet, but for the first time in human history, it's coming into view. I'm often asked, Dr. Kaplan, what supplements should I take to live longer? It's the wrong question. Here's why. No supplement will rescue poor sleep, an inflammatory diet, or a sedentary lifestyle. The foundations come first. Supplements support the foundation. They don't replace it. That said, a few do have some real science behind them. Vitamin D for immune health and bone health. Have your levels measured. Typically should be in the range of 50 to 90 nanograms per deciliter. Omega-3 fatty acids for inflammation, brain and heart health. Creatine, not just for athletes, but for muscle and brain in aging adults. Magnesium for sleep, muscles, metabolic health. And emerging compounds that support mitochondria and cellular cleanup are being actively studied. But notice what I'm doing. I'm not promising a miracle in a bottle. I'm matching specific tools to specific needs, ideally guided by testing. That's the difference between taking supplements and using them. If there's one thing I want you to remember from today's discussion, it's this. We are living through the most exciting moment in the history of human longevity. Aging is inevitable, but how we age is influenced by the choices we make and the biology we support every day. Longevity is not about finding one miracle supplement or one anti-aging treatment. It's about improving the systems that determine how well your body functions over time. Inflammation, energy production, sleep, movement, nutrition, brain health, connection, and resilience. And it's about measuring those systems so we can act early while we still have the most to gain. The future of longevity isn't about living forever. It's about helping people remain healthy, energetic, independent, and engaged for as long as possible. Because ultimately, longevity is not simply about adding years to life, it's about adding life to years. I'm Dr. Gary Kaplan, founder, medical director of the Kaplan Center for Integrative Medicine here in McLean, Virginia. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future conversations about longevity, inflammation, brain health, and healthy aging. I wish you a long, healthy, vibrant, happy life, and thank you for watching.